Yo, 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 Don Mafia. Welcome to yet another edition of the Don Mafia Report. Guys, you read the title correctly. We're going to be diving into my realistic expectations to what the Buffalo Bills will do in 2020 as far as record, as far as individual stats, you name it. We're going to be covering it. And by we, I am bringing a special guest on to sort of quarterback this entire situation with us. So it should be an awesome video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video if you haven't already. Before I go into the interview, I need to give a giant shout out to a recent Patreon contributor, Scott Blakely. Thank you so much for your contribution. You have no idea how much that really helps out my channel. It helps me consistently improve the content that I put out to you, and it improves the quantity of content that I put out to you. So the best way to support this channel is to watch my videos, number one, and then share them with friends, whether or not that it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. That's the best way to support. But if you want to go the extra mile for the Don Mafia, hit that link in my description. It's www.patreon.com/Dan Mitchell. You get some pretty cool perks, and I'll let you do your own research. Without further ado, let's dive in. Yo, 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 Don Mafia. Look at Mario. He's already laughing at my intro.
No, you know we do this, Dan, all the time. It's pretty fun.
For sure. Like, actually, our last live stream, he was trolling me for my intro. That and Joe's and Cover One's. Yo. Please give me the Cover One intro. I got to hear it because mine's pretty good, too. Greg, this is for you, buddy.
What's Greg say? Welcome, everybody, to the Cover One Buffalo podcast.
Good evening.
He's awesome. I just did a collab with him. It was a lot of fun. He's so knowledgeable about so many things. It's great going toe to toe with him about
that. Absolutely. And speaking of knowledgeable Don Mafia, like I did mention, I was bringing on a special guest so we could sort of tackle realistic expectations for the Buffalo Bills. And that is exactly why I brought on Mario from #SportsGuys. Like, this guy knows his shit. I'm sure the vast majority of you already follow his channel. If you don't, what you doing, bro? Do it right now. I'm going to put his channel in the link in the description. And I think me and Mario were talking about doing a video for his channel after this too. I mean, we're quarantined, so it, right? That's what I'm saying. But Mario, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself for the audience that might not know you at this point?
Yeah, basically the whole crux of #sports is Paul and I, my partner and I, we drive around in the car, we talk Bills, and we go get donuts and coffee and everything, and we cover everything, guys. We cover the salary cap, we cover the on-field, off-the-field stuff. We do film breakdowns. We call play-by-play during the season over on our affiliate channel, The Sportscaster, and it's actually a lot of fun. And in doing that, Dan and I, we were able to cross paths, and I've been a fan of his for a while. The Don Mafia, I am a member of the Don Mafia as well, so it's great that we can end up doing this.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. In fact, me and him were actually just talking about he does do his car episodes, and I'm going to be up there during the opener, so I'm definitely going to get there earlier, and I'm going to take a little ride around Western New York, man, just go back to my roots, you know what I mean?
I don't know if we're going to allow the Bud Lights. I don't know if we're going to get the Bud
Lights.
No,
no open containers there, man. Worst case scenario, I'll just bring a Labatt. At least that way it would be worth it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No question.
For sure. So Mario, right? So the Bills are getting a lot of hype, right? And us as Bills fans, we're somewhat cautiously optimistic. Because honestly, I mean, we've been through this for the past 20 years, a bunch of disappointments. So Bills fans now, we're slowly starting to learn what it's like for the media to actually be like actually sucking us off on national television, which when the hell has that ever happened, right? So we're seeing articles that like the Bills are the team to beat. We're seeing like that, like they're making projections of 11-5, 12-4, hosting the AFC Championship. So I thought it would be interesting sort of for us to get into a conversation of like, what are our actual like realistic expectations moving into the 2020 football season?
Well, I mean, just to start off on that, it's kind of like, it seems like one of these cheesy 90s movies where, the dorky kid goes to the prom and like the hottest girl in the school goes up and talks to him. And he's like, wait, what's happening now? What's happening now? And it seems like that's the general narrative about the Buffalo Bills around. It's like, whoa, they're getting all this positive publicity now when you even know when you watch the Thanksgiving game back against the Cowboys, it's like the whole game, they were all over the Cowboys, and nothing was said about the Bills until the final score happened, and everyone was like, "Whoa, the Bills are for real. The Bills have showed up." And having the most watched game on Thanksgiving in how many years, and having the most watched Sunday night game when they end up playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, everyone's starting to get it now. The stuff that you and I have been talking about, the things you've been preaching to Don Mafia, the things I've been talking about on hashtag sports, people are starting to get it. But I do understand you got to pump the brakes a little bit about this team and what's going on. It's always about taking care of your division first. And I don't care how many players they lose. If the evil empire is still there in New England, until I even tweeted this out the other day. I said, listen, until you take the crown, you're not the king yet. And they're still the king of the division. So I am optimistic because it's getting kicked in the teeth the last 20 years by this team.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So we're going to go through the division. We're going to go through the division. We're going to go through the schedule of the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, the games are going to be in different order, but the opponents the Bills have to run through in 2020 is vastly different than what they had to run through in 2019. So I'm glad to be talking about this with Don Mafia and trying to temper a little bit of expectations. Believe me. And Don Mafia, we're not hating on the Bills, but we're just trying to give you a cautious, objective view of the schedule the gauntlet that they have to run this year.
For sure. Now, one thing, it's funny because I'm pretty sure you and I had this conversation during a live stream, during a last collab or something along those lines. Before free agency even started, I will say that I was a lot more nervous about the schedule that we were facing in 2020, specifically because, first off, we're going up against the defending Super Bowl champions. We're probably going against arguably the best division in the entire NFL, being the NFC West. So here's my thing right before we actually get down to actual expectations. Has your opinion changed from how we're going to do with this schedule since free agency is starting to take, that pause and we're about to go into the draft right now?
Well, it's all about, and I'll pause so you can laugh. It's all about filling holes, Dan. You got to fill holes. And the Buffalo Bills, in losing Shaq Lawson and losing Jordan Phillips, you had to fill those holes, and you had holes on your offense and your defense that you had to fill. The Buffalo Bills returning so many starters that they had in the previous season, it definitely bodes well for continuity across the board with offense and defense. You lose Lorenzo Alexander, you lose Shaq Lawson, you lose Phillips. You end up getting Jefferson, you get Mario Addison, you get AJ Klein. You're starting to fill all these things. And I think that's the key for a lot of teams, from my own standpoint, is the fact that you got to fill these holes so they don't know where you're going in the draft. They don't know where you might trade up. They don't know what player you might take. So Bean and McDermott and the front office have been very good at, okay, they don't know where we're going, with the exception of 2018, because everyone knew the Bills needed a quarterback. They knew they were trading up for a quarterback. No one saw them trade back in or trade up to try to get Tremaine Edmonds, which was, you got your quarterback of your offense and defense now in the same draft, which is great. But I think right now I feel pretty confident because they bolstered an already awesome defense, and you return all your starters on the offense, with the exception of losing Frank Gore and a couple guys here and there. But the chemistry that's going to go on, given the uncertainty of what's going on, it's going to be fun to watch the Buffalo Bills in 2020. But I think going into 2019, I don't think people had as high expectation of the team as they're going to have coming into 2020.
For sure. So would you say that, so are you more or less scared for the schedule moving in after free agency?
I'm like, oh, because I knew, let's just put it this way. If the Bills go 10-6 in 2020, that 10-6 is vastly different than the 10-6 they just did, because of the gauntlet of teams. Like you said, the NFC West is stacked. The Buffalo Bills are playing 3 out of the 4 teams that were in championship games last year in Tennessee, Kansas City, and the only team they're not playing is Green. I think Green Bay was in the NFC Championship game, and then they got to play San Francisco. So you're playing both teams that represented the AFC and NFC in the Super Bowl last year. They're on your schedule for 2020. So having to run that type of gauntlet with the quarterbacks that you're going to have to face that are vastly better than the quarterbacks you faced in 2019 is always going to be a challenge.
Yeah. No, yeah, dude, like 110% agree with you right there. Like, that it's scary when you're going up against a division where the easiest opponent that you're going to be going up against is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. That is when that you're definitely going into the gauntlet, right?
Yep.
Realistically. So right now, like one thing when it comes down to it, like we do have a very, very difficult schedule that's clear. But one thing that helps me sleep at night is the fact that the remainder of our division is also going to be
Yep.
going against that, mammoth of a division that we are about to be facing. So before we really get into final projections, what's our expectation, records, stats, blah blah blah, how do you see us stacking up against this schedule compared to the remainder of the AFC East?
Well, I definitely think the Buffalo Bills are in a much better position due to the fact of what I mentioned earlier, that they do have a majority of their players coming back. The coaching staff is all back. They even added Eric Washington to their defensive line, who coached Vernon Butler and Mario Addison when they were down in Carolina, who coached for Sean McDermott and was there with Brandon Beane. So they're all about. That's what I love about the new Bills regime that maybe the previous regime didn't have too much of, was communication. I mean, we saw Rex Ryan bring in his brother because the defense, half the time when the ball was snapped, they're looking around, they're still talking to each other. There was no communication. And now you're starting to get that. But so I like it from that standpoint, but Belichick is always, he always makes it work somehow. He always makes it work. I know a lot of people want to attribute it to Brady. Some people attribute it to Belichick. We're going to find out this season. Brian Flores, who fell off the Belichick tree and who got some players from New England down there as well, is going to be tough. And the wild card, as everyone always says, the New York Jets, I think they have the talent to usurp the coaching that they have down there, because everyone bags on Gase and all this other stuff, but you got Le'Veon Bell there. They got some real key wide receiver. You got Josh Doxson, you got Brashad Perriman, you got Jamison Crowder, Chris Herndon's going to be coming back. They have a lot of really good pieces on their offenses and especially on their defenses too. They signed a couple new corners there. Miami did the same. They're signing corners. I think everyone in the East is equipping their team to try to face the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the unquestioned kings of the mountain right now with their explosive offense. So that being said, I like how they stack against the other teams in the East, which is why I have them winning the division, the Buffalo Bills winning the division, with a less than stellar record because of the gauntlet everyone else has to run.
For sure, man. It's funny that you say that the Jets are a wild card, because I personally have the Jets finishing in the basement of the AFC East this year. I really do.
Oh, I do, but I don't think
I have them finishing in the basement.
I don't know if it's a 3-13 basement though. I don't think it's a 4-12, 3-13 basement, because they do have a ton of talent in New York. And, when Darnold could stop seeing ghosts, I think he's going to be all right over there.
And so it's funny because the New York Jets have legitimately ignored their offensive line for the past decade. Mm-hmm. And I did see that they ended up getting Van Rotten or something like that for their OL. I think a couple of weeks ago or something. They got him from
Carolina. They also got McGovern as a center from Denver. McGovern's actually pretty good. And they're in the 11th spot, which bodes well for them to take. I don't know if Becton will fall that far, but that manimal that was pushing a car on Twitter the other day. Becton is a freak. He is just a huge freak. And if if he falls to 11 and they get him, I would watch out for that offense, because Bell will know what to do behind him.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely going to be interesting. As far as some of our other competition, we'll wait for the big elephant in the room for a little later. But the Dolphins, it's funny because I think that, while they've obviously been devoting a shit ton of energy toward their defense, their defense is completely different this year and for the better. But it's barring who they pick up in the draft, I'm seeing the Dolphins having a very similar season to our 2018 season, where we finished 6-10, where we had a ball-ass defense, but then who do you really have on offense, right? Maybe Jordan Howard they added. Maybe they'll get Tua on the 5th. But I'm seeing the Dolphins, while there's so much hype around them, especially with all the additions they made on their defense, still seeing them go 6-10. So then it comes down to the Wicked Witch of the West, or the East in this matter, Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
Oh my God, the Patriots.
So, what do you think? Are we going to take the series? Or are we going to go 2-0 against the Pats in 2020?
Oh my God, that would be in a lot of people's minds. That would be the key to making the playoffs and taking care of the division, because, like I said, they're still the king until someone says different. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Miami. You look down there; they're spending $30 million on 2 corners next year. I mean, that's the route that they decided to go. We know they have Shaq Lawson. They drafted Christian Wilkins last year. They got Kyle Van Noy. Now they have a 3 cornerback set where they have Xavier Howard and Byron Jones as their starting 2 corners, and you have
It's disgusting.
Eric Rowe, who is a solid slot corner. I mean, can you imagine if Fitzpatrick was still there and not in Pittsburgh? I mean, you'd have to seriously take Miami into consideration, because Flores is a defensive coach. And I agree with you when you said is they may have the same path as the Bills did in 2018, where they have a very solid defense. Their offense isn't going to be clicking. But when you look at Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, and Alan Hearns, those guys are 3 burners, man.
They
And
are.
they're not small either. Those guys are tough. And with Chan Gailey calling the shots, he's going to have some creative ways to get those guys the ball. So
For real.
Going over to New England, I saw a bunch of memes. It was actually kind of funny. Someone had a meme
I
of
love
Belichick,
memes.
the Belichick meme that said, hey, I made a 6th rounder the GOAT, so relax, or something like that.
I made a 6th rounder, the greatest of all time. Relax, dude. I know, man. It's definitely crazy. It's funny because, like, as far as my projections are concerned, I had us going 5-1 in the division, and I
Okay.
think that the one game that we drop in the division is going to be one against the Dolphins. I do. For some reason, I just have a feeling that we're gonna get our, year in and year out revenge from the Patriots, like that scene from A Christmas Story where Ralphie just goes off like right on that bully. Like, that's gonna happen twice next year. I can guarantee you that. But I think the Dolphins are probably going to take us for at least one game in the division this year. But I think as far as like the talent is concerned within the AFC East, like, there's no question, in my opinion, that the Buffalo Bills are the most complete team in that division.
Well, yeah, like I actually have the Buffalo Bills going 4-2 in the division, and I don't have them losing. Um, I don't have them losing to the Dolphins, because if you look at the statistical breakdown of Josh Allen versus a Dolphin team,
Touche.
he has unbelievably torched them. I know there was 2 different regimes, but nothing seemed to change between 2018 and 2019 about how Josh Allen performed against the Dolphins. He just always seems to have their number, and it's interesting to see how the different narrative is going to be with Ryan Fitzpatrick versus if they draft Tua, or if they draft any other quarterback in the first round, how that's going to manifest itself. But I have them actually going 4-2, but I have them losing to the Jets and the Patriots.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
I have
So
them
the
sweeping the
Pats still
Dolphins.
get us, man. The Pats still get us. So,
The
so you're
mystique
saying
is always
Brian
there.
Hoyer's So you're saying Brian Hoyer's going to go off at our defense is what you're saying.
I don't say that. I'm more oh God, I'm more confident in Belichick and what he's able to do to design to confuse offenses, especially young quarterbacks. You're going to tell me that possible rookie in Miami, a 3rd-year Sam Darnold, and a 3rd-year Josh Allen, that if you look at Belichick's record against quarterbacks in their first 3
That are
years,
young?
oh my God,
It's disgusting.
he
It's disgusting.
confuses the crap out of them. And I just
Yeah.
don't know. Like I said, Hoyer or whoever's there, it's a 7-yard passing tree. Like, it's not hard to learn that passing tree there.
Just a bunch of check downs, man.
Here you go.
That's it.
Here you go.
There you go. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, man. Really sleeping on Bill Belichick is definitely going to be tough. But
Oh yeah.
and so, now, we're finally going to get the answer. Who
Mm-hmm.
was the reason for the Patriots' success? Was it Belichick or was it Tom Brady? As much as I hope it was the latter, because Tom Brady is now far away from the Bills, which I'm absolutely pumped about. I'm hoping that it's the latter, but at the end of the day, I do think that Bill Belichick will surprise us. But as far as their offense is concerned, not unless he can pull a miracle and try and convince Andrew Luck to come out of retirement and somehow get the rights from the Colts and bring him then yeah, maybe I'd be a little nervous about that team. But for the first time in a long time, man, I am so confident in the way that the Buffalo Bills will finish in the AFC East this year, and it's absolutely insane.
Well, I mean, and you're right, and you're justified in thinking about that. You got to think of in the last 3 years, even though Brady has gotten the best of the Buffalo Bills in the games they have played, it really wasn't him a
It
lot of
wasn't. No, it
times.
wasn't.
He
It
was
was their
kind of kept in
defense just
check,
fucking with us.
I really, I think he had more picks than touchdowns as well. But it was the running game, which they return all of the running backs. They have Michelle, they have White, they have Burkhead, they have um, they got another they got a four-headed monster there, but they still have all those guys there that know the system and know what's going to be expected of them. So that's why that's why I kind of do the split in that respect. So it wasn't Brady that was beating the Bills. It was Belichick and his schemes on defense that were really confounding a young Josh Allen. And hopefully Josh Allen took the step into year 3, which we're all hoping that he can go and be like, listen, I don't care what you throw at me. I've seen it all before. I'm going to take care of business. So
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And it's funny speaking to Josh Allen because on Twitter, that video was going viral of him working on the deep ball and stuff like that.
my
And
God.
me as a Bills fan was super pumped, but then of course you get your trolls there. And like I was like reading through like the comments and stuff like that. And like one guy said, "Take 47, go." Like like something like that.
They're in drones, man. The trolls were out there.
Yeah, the
I went
trolls are
out.
there.
Full disclosure,
Yeah.
I played quarterback when I was in college, and so I go out and the backyard and my neighbor's yard, they're both about 25, 30 yards apiece wide. So I go back in the backyard because I figured it was like about a 60, 65-yard throw that Allen did. So I drop back and I try to do the same thing, and I hit
Did
like
you hit it?
I hit like the middle of the next yard. I probably threw it like 45 yards. I'm like, nope,
Nice.
he's a different breed, man. He is such a different breed.
And so what did you throw back in your prime?
My prime, we used to have a game when I was in college that it was a drinking game, obviously. All the quarterbacks would huddle up after
Best
practice.
games.
And you'd have to throw the ball from we'd start at the 20 and you have to hit the crossbar in the end zone. So the best I ever did was I stood at the 45-yard line, dropped back and threw it, and I hit the crossbar. That was the best I've ever thrown.
Sick.
So I'd say 60 is probably my max that I've ever thrown in my life. Probably maybe 65 if I stretched it with some wind, but I can't.
Yeah, with some wind going in your favor.
Allen's a different breed, man. He is such a mutant when it comes to throwing the ball.
For real, man. So I mean, so I did mention that I thought that the Buffalo Bills were the most complete team in the AFC East, and for good reason. Like I mean, going into free agency, I did not expect them to make those splash moves like they did. And then as soon as when free agency ended, now the question became not what the Buffalo Bills need, because I feel like the Buffalo Bills really don't need anything per se.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it's upgrading at this point. So,
Yep.
I mean, all right. So when you look at our roster in general, right?
Yep.
What do you think the Buffalo Bills, and in parentheses, well, not parentheses, Mr. Teacher, tell me, quotes,
In
quote
quotes.
marks,
Air
quotes
quotes.
marks, air quotes. What do we need at this point? Because I personally have a thought that I think our biggest need is, but first I want to hear it from you.
Well, it's funny how you could trade your first round pick away, and which I thought was a beautiful move because Diggs is still under contract for 4 years. A lot of people kind of glossed over that. Oh, we got rid of our first round pick. We were going to draft a receiver. Well, you didn't have the assets to kind of trade up to get the guy you wanted. And he's under contract for 4 years, which are all the contracts for 4 years except for the fifth-year option. So that's the only thing you're foregoing with Stephon Diggs. But the trade-off is you get a polished route runner who's played in the NFL and been successful. A lot of people are talking about the second-round pick. We should take a running back. We should take a wide receiver. We should take – it's amazing that the second-round pick for the Buffalo Bills, if it's a running back, it's going to be a guy that complements your starter. Not a starter, a guy that complements your starter. If you're taking a wide receiver, hey, you got Diggs, Brown, and Beasley. He could sit back and learn for a couple of years. You got Beasley and Brown for 2 years, so he can learn underneath them. He doesn't need to start right away. That's great. If you take a defensive end, you just signed Mario Addison. You got Jerry Hughes. You got Murphy there as well. So you got guys in place that he can get introduced to the defense in a rotational front, which the Bills run anyway. I would say that if I'm telling you right now, what the Buffalo Bills need, I would say either right tackle or
Interesting.
or a Sam linebacker, an outside linebacker, which they did get AJ Klein. But if I had to, look, I don't think they need anybody. Like they took care, Bean took care of everything in the offseason.
He really did.
A complimentary back, I know would probably be the popular decision, is that you need somebody to with Singletary in that backfield to spell him, and I understand that, but you're looking at your second round pick in 2020 as somebody that's a luxury. How many times in Bill's history do we even have that?
Touche, man. Touche. It's funny because, I'm a huge advocate that I think that we need to sort of adopt a running back by committee, because we all understand, like, Frank Gore's not coming back.
Yep.
Know that he's not coming back. I mean, like, I'm like not even sure if like some team will even, grab him for like a minimum contract. Hopefully he's a great guy. He did great things for the Bills back in 2019, not taking that away from him. Yeah. But I think the biggest need is a secondary running back. And once we get into the draft, and you follow me on Twitter. So that I've been preaching to the choir that your boy really wants a secondary running back in the second round. Yep. I love Jonathan Taylor. And so does Paul. Watch your video. Love Jonathan Taylor. I love Cam Akers. Cam Akers. And then I love Zach Moss too. And that's like really when it comes down to, out of the, millions of mock drafts that I have ran on draftnetwork.com, it's basically rotating between us grabbing a running back or us grabbing an edge rusher, which I personally think is BS, because the only edge rushers, in my opinion, that are worth a shit are Chasen, Gross Matos, and then that one guy from Iowa, Spenza or something like that, who I'm not even a big fan of. So, I mean, I think that realistically, I think that our biggest need is going to be that secondary running back, because while, we got all these shiny new toys in the receiving room, I think that the Buffalo Bills are still going to be a run-first offense next year. I still think they are. What are your thoughts there?
No, I like it. Yeah. I like the fact that immediately by getting Diggs, you open up the offense, because schematically speaking, the defense can't just crowd the box and play man on Brown and Beasley and just forget about the other wide receiver and crowd the box for Singletary. That's great. I agree with your assessment of the fact that, okay, you need somebody to spell Singletary. You definitely need somebody to spell Singletary. And you need a guy that can complement him as well. Is he a receiving back? Is he a pounder? Everyone's kind of split down the middle in how the complementary back to your starting Devin Singletary, which when he was drafted, got to say, wasn't a fan. I got to say it, because it's on tape, because I wasn't a fan of Devin Singletary, because he had over 900 carries in his college career, which is, you come into the NFL with that kind of tread taken off the tire. It's tough to have a sustainable long career. So, I was like, okay, they took him. Would he do this? Would he do that? Okay. So then you love Taylor. I love Taylor. He gets to the outside like nobody's business. However, he's got over 1,000 snaps in 3 years playing in a Wisconsin offense, which we know Wisconsin, the big uglies up front, they run the ball all the time.
And so he was their offense the past 2 years.
He was their offense. He really was.
Their offense.
So asking, that's the thing about, and I'm let me sidestep this for a second. When you talk about Dawson Knox was the third or fourth option in the Ole Miss offense when he was there. So coming to the Bills, he was going to assume that same role as a third or fourth option, or in the offense. So he was comfortable coming into this offense, which is why, minus some drops here and there, he did fairly well. You're talking about Taylor, who was a starter, who was a stud, who was the big man on campus, coming in and being a spellback for Devin Singletary. They must be really confident in him that he can assume that role as a complimentary guy, and not a guy that's going to take over the position of Devin Singletary, unless the Buffalo Bills feel that Taylor's the number one and Singletary's number two, which blows my mind this offseason. But we're quarantined. I'm thinking about this stuff all the time, which is crazy.
That's all I'm doing.
So I like a name that I personally like, who the Bills may not even target or whatever, but it probably would be there available in the third round if they decide to do something with their second round pick, is Eno Benjamin. All right. He is exactly a Singletary clone. So if you wanted to bring a guy in to spell Singletary without having to change up your calls, because honestly, if you bring in Taylor, He's more of an outside runner. He's an outside threat. I'm not saying he can't run inside. I'm saying he can get the edge like nobody's business. Singletary is going to be that pounder inside that runs inside in zone blocking, in a zone blocking scheme, that he can get in and out of cuts and everything. We've seen him do it already. So you would actually call different plays for both Singletary and Taylor. I mean, realistically speaking, I know I'm not a pro scout, but in my observation from what I've seen on tape, that's what you would do. However, if you brought in Eno Benjamin, you don't have to change the offense at all. You put Singletary out, you put Eno Benjamin, good, let's go. All right, and you can use your second round pick on somebody else. So
That's sick, man.
Believe me, with the quarantine, I've had a chance to do all this stuff.
Yeah, dude, me too. Like legit, like I mean, like my entire quarantine, I've just been like working, obviously, and then afterwards, I'm just like focusing on what the hell are the Buffalo Bills going to do during this virtual draft, which I think is going to be super damn cool. But yeah, so as far as like the running back, like that's obviously one thing. And then I was a gambling man, and I was saying that if we weren't to go for a secondary running back, then I was sort of leaning toward, and like one thing, if I was the GM, I would be looking for a cornerback, someone that thrives specifically in man coverage, mostly because we ended up letting Kevin Johnson walk. So, I mean, that's also something that I've been like sort of considering. Maybe we'll go cornerback route, say that we don't go running back. But I mean, it's just so nice speculating all of this, because I would feel confident in the Buffalo Bills right now if we just skip the draft entirely, that, I mean, we're still winning the AFC East.
Oh, yeah. And the greatest part about it is that Bean has been ahead of the curve on positional need, and that's something that you need. That's something that he's been really good at doing. I mean, we signed TJ Yeldon like 2 days before the draft last year, and we ended up drafting Devin Singletary, which gave them the ability to get rid of LaShawn McCoy. So, and then they got Gore as well. So he's very ahead of positional need of when you need players and when the players are going to be there. I think it's interesting that they signed AJ Klein.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going to happen with Matt Milano's contract and how he's going to be signed or when he's going to be signed. So he tries to stay at positional need. That's why I said Sam linebacker as one of the drafts, that are one of the guys that could be picked at 54. But going to the cornerback position, I agree with you. I would have loved to have Kevin Johnson on this team again. The Bills end up signing EJ Gaines back to compete with Teron Johnson for the slot role. That's what I'm saying. And I would agree with you 175,000% about Josh Norman on the corner, because he is more of a zone corner. He's more of a Levi Wallace type. However, the one thing that I didn't take into consideration was how many times Micah Hyde played over the top of that side and left Trey White on the other side by himself, which is why he's such a valuable piece of this defense. So if you want to still run Josh Norman, EJ Gaines, Trey White, put Micah Hyde, you have Poyer sniff around the box a little bit to try to help with the run, you could still shut down teams in 2020, even if you believe that at this point in his career, Josh Norman is just a straight zone corner. He's still very physical. He can still get in your face. And if they happen to get by him, what's up? Micah Hyde. Nice to see you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Like, so many people were shitting on Norman. Like, oh, yeah. Like, so many of my buddies that were Skins fans, they're like, oh, good luck with that guy. I was just like, well, like, I mean, like, your coaching staff didn't know how to use him.
No, they didn't. No.
Because, well, so, I mean, I honestly think that Norman is going to have not like a breakout season, but he is going to like look very similar to what he did in 2015, being on the outside of Trey.
And the greatest part is this: we know the timeline. 2015, the Carolina Panthers went to the Super Bowl with Josh Norman on the corner there. He ended up leaving the next year, and they were abysmal. They were awful. Like McDermott and Bean, and I think Marty Herney was the GM for the Carolina Panthers. They tried getting guys in to play the corner position. Bradbury was one of those guys who he struggled his rookie year. If you remember, in 2016, that's when Julio Jones went for 300 against that secondary that just went to the Super Bowl. It was insane. So perhaps Norman will probably get in Trey's ear. This is a little – maybe Norman gets in Trey's ear and says, listen, I wish I had never left Carolina. Yeah. And probably tells Trey, listen, you need to sign here because McDermott's a guy you want to play for. Bean's a guy that you want to play for. You want to stay in the system because your career would be eons above mine. If Norman would have stayed in Carolina when he was trying to get the big payday, who knows what kind of corner he would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, for sure. Like, it all comes down to the system. It really does. So, all right. So, I mean, like, now we got to address the elephant in the room, right? Okay. Final expectations from the Buffalo Bills in 2020. What are your expectations for the Bills?
Well, numerically speaking, this is where everybody in Don Mafia who did sub to hashtag sports now unsubs
Are gonna unsub immediately
because
afterwards.
I'm gonna say because of the gauntlet of the schedule, because of the teams you got to play, because of everything that Dan and I discussed. Now Dan's on a different. We don't see eye to eye on this, which is fine. I think that they're going to go 9-7, but
Interesting.
it's a
Okay.
9-7 that wins the division
Got it.
because of the gauntlet you have to say. And to your point that you said earlier, Dan, all the teams in the East are running that gauntlet, and they're not built like the Bills right now on paper at this moment. As we talk about this in this episode, they are not built like the Buffalo Bills. So going forward, I think, and let me just say this: a 9-7 in 2020 is more impressive than going 10-6 in 2019 because of the gauntlet you got to run with the West.
Sure.
I just think 110%. You're playing the Tennessee Titans, who were in the AFC Championship game. You're playing the San Francisco 49ers, who were in the Super Bowl. You're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl. You're playing all of these teams that just loaded up on so many people. The Seattle Seahawks are nothing to laugh at. The defense of the Rams is nothing to scoff at, especially their offense with McVay there. So I think more of the offenses that the Bills are going to have to play are better, but the defense is also upgraded. So for Allen to make that leap and the offense to make that leap, they got to get the continuity going really, really quick. And when you return 10 of 11 starters, you can have that continuity and you can have plays that you have in the hopper that you can call, or audibles that you can call, or things you can do. I think this is the first time in 20 years that the Bills had the same offensive coordinator for 3 straight years in Brian Daboll. So
Crazy.
while I'm confident, don't take 9-7 as a slight to the Bills. I think with the schedule coming up, with the gauntlet you got to run, they're going to win the division 9-7. That's what I'm putting on the table. That's what I'm putting on the table. So what do you got?
And so still be 2 games ahead, and still be 2 games ahead afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. Me, I am seeing 11-5 mostly because the Bills, just knowing from like past recognition, the Bills always pull off at least 1 or 2 wins that we were not supposed to fucking win for the past 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
Shock the world. That's exactly why that I'm going with 11-5. I really like the fact that we've added those like new weapons to our offense. And then I also like the fact that our defense really hasn't changed. Yes, of course, Lorenzo Alexander, he has retired, but I think that you're seeing the exact same production from AJ Klein, replacing Lorenzo Alexander at the exact same point from that aspect as well. Yes, we're missing out on Kevin Johnson, but I think, like we were just talking about, Norman is going to step up. I think that our defense is going to be the exact same production as 2019, maybe even a little better, specifically within our DL. So, I mean, I'm saying that the Buffalo Bills are going to go 11-5. I do foresee us actually making a relatively deep playoff run. I see us winning the wild card because I do not see us making the 1 seed. I see us honestly making like the 3rd, the 4th, maybe the 2nd, if like we can pull off those. Holy shit, the Bills just completely like blew out the Seahawks like crazy. If that does happen, then I mean, I am seeing 11-5, and I think that right now we are currently in our Super Bowl window for the next 2 or 3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like just a couple of points, counterpoints to what you had. Zoe is a Swiss Army knife, though. You got to realize that the Buffalo Bills, they got they got Jefferson, they got AJ Klein, and they got Tyler Metakevich. I think I'm butchering his name. I apologize, Tyler, if you're watching this. But they got those 3 guys to fill Zoe's role. His one role that he played defensive tackle, he played outside linebacker, he played special teams. Took 3 guys to do it. That's how valuable he was to this team. That's one. 2 is, I think in 2019, people – and this narrative has to come from somewhere. You know how everyone says, oh, you know what? And then, pop the cork on this. Everyone was shitting on the Bills, okay? And there's a reason for that. The national narrative was, okay, they're the Bills. And we've heard it many times. I don't think that in 2019 it was, oh, hey, the Bills are coming in, and that's where those wins came from. I think in 2020 it's like, the Bills are coming. We gotta focus this week because the Bills are coming in, and I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody. So I think that in in 2019 where they could sneak up on people because everyone know, hey, they got a pretty good defense. What's with this quarterback? What's with this offense? This new head coach? What's going on? Everything intertwined in there. They're just coming off a 6-10 season, so they snuck up on some teams, and by the time the teams knew it, they were like this punch drunk boxer in the corner, and they're like, where I can hit him? Where is he? And the Bills already walked out with a victory. I don't think in 2020 they're sneaking up on anybody. I think everyone knows,
sure.
hey, this is a legit squad that we have to prepare for. We got to start taking our swings at this team because these guys are serious and they're coming after us. That's the only reason I would go from 11-5 and 9 to 9-7 because they're not going to. I don't think they're going to sneak up on anybody in 2020.
Touche, dude. I feel you on that.
So the 9-7, please don't, Don Mafia, don't hate on me for it. I apologize.
And no, listen, honestly, I'm not sure what your schedule is like for the rest of the evening, but Don Mafia, we're thinking about going over to his channel. We are going to actually go through the schedule, go through the opponents and say whether or not that we have a win or a loss, depending on the opponent, just based off of free agency. This is way too early. Obviously, the draft still hasn't happened. Yep. Certain injuries haven't happened, blah, 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 you name it. But we're going to go over to his channel and we're going to go through each and every single opponent that we have. And we're going to say whether or not that we foresee that being a win or a loss. So not sure what your schedule is like for the rest of the night, Mario.
Hey, I'm open, man.
He's open.
I'm always good to talk to the Mafia, man.
All right, dude. Fantastic. So, we're going to do that video over at his channel. Like I said, his channel is going to be linked in my description. Make sure you go there, subscribe to it, turn on those bell notifications, and we'll basically go from there. Besides that, Don Mafia, thank you so much for tuning in with us this evening. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Give us an idea of what your realistic expectations of the Bills will be in 2020. We really want to know that. But besides that, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you over on Mario's channel whenever he decides to upload it. Deuces.